Today, 29 countries have depleted uranium weapons in their military arsenals.
In 1985, we made a deal to disarm with the Russians. Mikhail Gorbachev, we said that. We said, we're going to disarm. But what we did was we took the nuclear waste, right? Ronald Reagan, in his geniosity, said, we're going to send it to the moon or drop it to the bottom of the ocean. The environmentalists in America said, you've lost your mind. So what they did was they took it and they mixed it in with our weaponry. Serious problem, because we just passed a $402 billion DOD budget, and we have a free weapon. Where's the $402 billion going? It's going to buy off the people who are covering this thing up. But what we're using is our nuclear waste now as a weapon.
My name is Dr. Doug Rocky. I've got a PhD in basically physics and technology education. During Gulf War I, I had the responsibility as U.S. Army health physicist to identify, collect, secure, and clean up the depleted uranium-contaminated equipment caused by Gulf War I. The last NATO commando, Wesley Clark, who's now running for President of the United States, God help the world, absolutely ordered and approved the use by NATO aircraft of uranium munitions in the Balkans. He absolutely approved it. And then once it was done, he refused to identify where it was, refused to tell the United Nations where they had used it, refused to provide the medical care, and is continuing to do that to this day. The estimates from the British Royal Society of the use of uranium munitions in Gulf War II exceeds probably 2,000 tons. We estimate approximately 1,000 tons in Afghanistan. 2,000 tons I refer to just the solid uranium component. Not anything else has been used in the war.
I'm Chris Busby, Scientific Secretary of the European Committee on Radiation Risk. The evidence that I've seen persuades me that depleted uranium is a serious hazard for human health. That people who have been contaminated or live in areas where this material has been used have suffered real increases in cancer, particularly lymphoma and leukemia, and in addition to this, the genetic damage caused by this material leads to congenital malformations in children and will also lead to cancer in these children when they grow up, and probably in their children also.
And in Desert Storm, I served as a frontline medic with the 18th Airborne Corps, all the way up front, assigned to the 24th Infantry Division. Soldiers walked into a contaminated zone, which the medics, as we were medics, we had to document because it led to illness. So what medics do as a requirement is we say, this looks like it's causing illness, we document it. But we didn't realize that there was no media elements anywhere around and we're never going to see it because these things we were taking pictures of were later buried on the side of the road by our engineer corps.
Depleted uranium is the perfect weapon because it is very dense. They can make bullets or large shells out of it, and depleted uranium weapons have a solid core. It's like a pencil shape, which is solid depleted uranium. And even when it comes out of a gun barrel or the barrel of a cannon, for instance, on a tank, it's on fire. And when it's burning, it produces these very tiny particles. They're smaller than bacteria. They're smaller than viruses. And they go through every part of your body.
We started learning and fast learning. Again, I had a strong background in physics, environmental medicine, so it wasn't too hard to figure out. With the completion of the ground war, I was reassigned as a theater health physicist with the responsibility to clean up uranium munitions. When we got to the front line, there's only 3 words that can describe what I saw. Oh my God. Contamination was extensive, the wounds and injuries were extensive. There was no precautions made to provide either medical care, to clean up the environment, or to secure the contaminated equipment. Well, between the first Gulf War and the second Gulf War, I did develop all the training, educational materials, environmental cleanup procedures to clean up uranium contamination. But what I discovered as part of my work for the U.S. Department of Defense and ended up being with NATO is you can't clean it up. And there is no effective respiratory or skin protection for uranium contamination exposure after the use of the munitions.
I am Dr. Jinan Ghalib Hassan, Assistant Prof, Medical College, Basra University, and I am pediatrician, oncologist, and work in maternal and child hospital. I know about how our city is contaminated, and all the things contaminate, water, the air, the soil, the food, all this contaminated. In the 2002 is about more than 7 times increase of cancer cases, and regarding congenital malformation is about more than 7 times also increase. As we know, the half-life of the DU is 4.5 billion year, and I thought that in the future is more devastating, is more miserable for us, because I suppose the increased cases of cancer, of congenital malformation, even me, I don't know what happened in the future, because I'm also contaminated by this material.
When you expose cells or DNA or people to radiation, the damage from one exposure will go through and damage the next 40,000 generations. So, radioactive damage is forever.
Most of the cancer is leukemia, and the second is lymphoma, skin cancer, and bone cancer. What I see in this year is very strange things. The baby may be born without head, without limb, without eye. Before the war, after delivery, the mother said this is boy or girl. But in these days, they say this is normal or abnormal. They afraid to get pregnant.
We know they're going to get sick because the United States Department of Defense told us when we did the United States Army and Environmental Policy Institute study, started in 1992, to figure out ways to reduce the toxicity of DU. You know, if they're going to give us that order to figure out ways to reduce the toxicity, they must know it's toxic. And all the other research and everything that I've got, evidence I have, absolutely verifies it is.